Hello, welcome to the HyperConnect workshop. In this workshop, it's part two of a series of Hyper workshops teaching you how to use the Hyper data service. And in this workshop, we will start to talk about HyperConnect. HyperConnect is a SDK or a library that just provides a nice interface to connect to the Hyper data service, which is an HTTP REST-like JSON API. So to get started, my name's Tom Wilson, and I am the CEO of Hyper, and I'm glad to be here today to show you some additional features of Hyper. If you haven't checked out our Hello World workshop, I recommend you do so. In this one, we're going to talk a little bit about HyperConnect, and then we're going to continue with our Mario Wiki API that we're building out and update a character, remove a character, and list some characters. With this workshop, you can follow along. In the description, there's a link to a GitHub repo, and we use Gitpod to run virtual machines so that you could actually spin it up and actually run it without having to install anything on your system. You want to go to dashboard.hyper.io and sign up for an account and create an app, and we'll walk through that as well. So let's get started to talk a little bit more about HyperConnect. Like I said, it's a client module or library that you import in your application as a dependency to provide a nice clean interface to work with the Hyper API. When you sign up for Hyper, you create an app and you get a connection string. That connection string looks very similar to a URL. We modeled it based on a URL so we could leverage the URL parse library in both Node and Deno. And when it parses the connection string, HyperConnect, when HyperConnect parses the connection string, it will grab the protocol to determine if it's a local or on-prem Hyper service or in the cloud, our cloud Hyper service, and then a key and a secret. It uses the secret to sign a JSON web token, and the key goes into the token as a subclaim. Then the host is the target where it's going to send the request, and the app is the app name as it corresponds to the app in our Hyper dashboard. For more information of specifically HTTP clients in JavaScript, I'd recommend you check out the developer Mozilla site where you can see the request object, because basically HyperConnect just creates these request objects, and then you can use any HTTP client to send if you're on Node, and if you're on Deno, the fetch client is built into the platform. So we'll be using Deno today. There's also a identical workshop on Node coming out, but for now, we'll use Deno. And essentially, when I call in my application hyper.data.update, passing some arguments, what HyperConnect is going to do is construct this HTTP request, where update is going to place a put, and then the path name will be the service data, and then the app name, which it's getting from the HyperConnect string, and then the identifier, which is coming from one of the arguments, and then the host, again, is coming from the HyperConnect string. It is a JSON API, so we have to say content type is JSON. And then the token is the JSON web token that's created by using the key and secret. And then the body that we want to send to the service. For more information about the entire HyperConnect API, you can go to our documentation page /cloud/HyperConnect. All right, so now let's work on the workshop. And before we get started, we just have to set up our environment. If you've loaded it in Gitpod, you're really close to completion. We just have 2 additional steps. The first step is to create an app in Hyper Dashboard. Here I've already, well, let's go ahead and create a new app. So I'll create a new app, and let's call it 22-degree halo, Sandy Brown. How about Sandy Brown Halo? Let's just call it that. Okay. Now we've got our app. If we open that in our app panel, we can copy this connection string by hitting this little document icon here, and you'll notice it's copied. Then we can go into our Gitpod environment, and we cd into connect, and let's create a .env file, and let's add hyper equals in our connection string that we copied from the dashboard, and let's add that to the .env file. So I just did echo, and that should have created a .env file. So if I type that, you can see that I've got hyper and my connection string in there. So that's great. And then the next couple of steps, one is we're going to do a setup script. We'll run that, and that's just going to add some documents in our hyper service to play with. And then the other will be a start script to start our API server. So we'll go ahead and run that as well. And that will start on port 3000. And we're going to use a REST tool called Hopscotch. I'll just clear out my previous entries, yes, and that URL, and refresh to a clean slate. So Hopscotch is just a way to write a fancy curl or a fancy request in the browser. So it's nice. It'll be easy on the eyes and give us a way to see what's going on with our API service. So the first thing we'll do is we'll make sure our web server is running. So we've got Mario Wiki API, that's good. Let's go ahead and just copy that, put that in our Hopscotch URL and do a git, and we got Mario Wiki API. All right, so let's get to our workshop. The first thing we want to do is update character. And to update a character, in our previous workshop, you learned how to add a document and get a document by ID. So we want to be able to update a document. And it's just important to know that when you update a document using the put command or the update command, you have to include the entire document. That way it will replace the current document specified. If you wanted to patch or partially update, there's a command on HTTP called patch, which I think we have a request to implement in the future. But for now, you can do a put, and you can get your document, make your changes, and then put the changed document back up. And we've got a file on our API folder called update character. So let's pull that in, and then let's show you how you use HyperConnect to update a document. We import hyper from HyperConnect, And to update a document, we do an await hyper.data update. And then we need the params.id that's passed in on the URL and the body. And we have those two things. And then we can just send back to our client the result. So it'd be send result like that. And if we want to go into hopscotch, we can test this endpoint out. So we're going to do, let's do characters slash character slash one. That should return the first character. Oh, API. API characters character slash one should return the first character Mario in our Mario Wiki. And then what we're going to do is change it by adding a description. Mario is a plumber. And we'll change this get to a put. And we send that. And okay, true. We updated our character. Pretty awesome. The next item on the workshop is remove character. And in order to remove the character, we just call hyperdata.remove. So in this case, we will edit the remove character file, and we'll import hyper from hyperconnect, and then we will capture the result, and we'll do an await hyper.data.remove, and then params.id. So we need the param, and then we're just going to send the result to the caller. Okay. So with that command, we can go over to our hopscotch tab, and we have characters, character ID. If we change our verb to a delete, then we should effectively remove that character from the database. We can double check that with this get command and send, and you can see okay false means that it could not find it. Okay, so that's good. It can't find the character. Let's go ahead and re-add it for our third part of the workshop, and that is the list item. So this is a range query list, which means you can add certain attributes to the list command to either query by range or a set of keys, etc. And what we'll do is we'll go through kind of some of the types of lists you can do. You can list with a default limit. You can list with a specified limit. And you can list using a range of start key and end key, and list with specific keys. So let's go ahead and build the easiest list function. So we'll go to our list characters, and we'll import hyper from hyperconnect, and then we'll say result equals await hyper.data.list open paren, close paren, and then we'll just send the result to the client. Okay. Now, if we go to hopscotch and say, let's list all the characters. So it's API/characters, and it's a get. Bam. We get all the characters in our database, which is pretty cool. Now, let's say if we only wanted to return 2. So we could just do limit 2. And that should return 2. When we make a request in our list, we do get an object back and an OK true, and then the docs array. Now we can change this result and destructure it to get the docs and send just the docs to our client. Okay. Here we just return two docs. Pretty cool. Now we can also do a range. So we can do start key, and the range is alphanumeric. So we could say like A, and then it would be like all the identifiers that start with A. And then if there's no stop key, then it would continue to list. If we said, start key D, then it would be all the identifiers that start with D and so on down the list. So let's do character 2, and then let's add an end key to make a range, and let's do character 3, right? So the start key will be 2, the end key will be 3, and if we run that, we should get characters 2 and 3, not 1 and 2. And we do. Characters 2 and 3. Pretty cool. But the key to the range is it's alphanumeric. So whatever your start key needs to exist in an identifier list that's different from your end key. And we should be able to do an array of keys. So oftentimes you may have just a list of unique identifiers that you want to pull in one request. And that's where you use the keys um, feature. We can say character 2 and character 4. But with the keys, it has to be the full key. It can't be a partial or it won't work. So here we've got character 2 and character 4. And if we send it, we get 2 and 4. Very cool. So there's a lot more that you can do with the list object. Really welcome you to check out the docs. Here we're going to do one more. We're going to show how composable these commands are by just getting the array and then filtering the array by type. So we can just create this pure function that returns a by type, returns all the documents in the list by type. So we can say filter by type character, like that. And then we can take our list and just make it open-ended like that. And we should get all 4 characters. Yep. Okay, thanks. Okay, so to summarize, we talked about Hyperconnect and we talked about the update, the remove, and the list. In the next workshop, we'll do the query feature and the bulk feature. The query feature allows you to provide a JavaScript object using selectors to create a more advanced query when you query your data. And then the bulk feature allows you to combine multiple documents in an array and submit one request or a bulk, and it can insert, update, or remove documents in that one request. So with that, that concludes this workshop. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.